All right, and welcome to week 2 of A Stage Reborn Sings, our virtual choir project. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of recap of what happened in week 1, what we went over, and then we're going to do a deep dive into the score, a little bit of markup, and then we're going to go over a couple strategies to help you learn this and any other piece a little bit easier. At the end of this week will be the first recording assignment for singers, and details will be emailed to them at the end of today's session. So, let's begin. For Cycle 1 of A Stage Reborn Sings, we are performing a arrangement of a Felix Mendelssohn composition, O for the Wings of a Dove, which is a section of a short cantata written named Hear My Prayer. The arrangement we are using was arranged by Philip Labas last year in 2018. And last week we went over the piece, listened to some other arrangements of the piece, and all are incredibly similar and not surprisingly so. And we also went over this piece's performance in modern music, where we get actually some terminologies like golden masters and things like that because of the recording of this piece being so popular. That they couldn't use the original wax, so they had to recast the recording in gold because it was the only thing durable enough to stand up to how many records they had to press. That's just one example of a few things. This piece is incredibly important in modern Western and modern sacred music. So we're going to go through these, through the score bit by bit here. What singers may notice is in the score there are rehearsal marks A, B, C, and D. I think there's also an E. It's been a few weeks since I went through this. Yep, D, and then yes, E. And then E falls all the way to the end. So, well, there is an F. Alright. So we're going to, can I zoom out on this? Yes. Let me change my view here. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna get rid of the workspaces bar. This untitled. There we go. Single page at a time. Oh, that's not exactly what I wanted. So we're just going to do a continuous view. This was not formatted for continuous view, was it? Alright, paginate. So the first section of this, all the way through rehearsal marker B, is the introduction cantata, which will be done by soloists, and I'm going to encourage everybody who's interested to learn this on their own. This particular piece of the music has a different rhythmic structure than the rest of the piece. So let's go ahead and change this to view the mixer. Good. The mixer is very large there. So what we're going to do is we're going to solo that and the orchestra together. And we're going to go over just a quick listen of this section of it, just to get the this rhythmic and chordal structure in its head. Mendelssohn in this piece and many others followed a very classical circle of fifths progression through the music, and you'll be able to hear that progression, and that it's very rigid in that sense, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It still creates beautiful music being rigid and following these very specific rules of composition. So let's just go through the introductory cantata, through rehearsal marker B, and we'll hear some themes and what are called motives, which are little snippets that will continue coming back over and over again throughout the piece. There are motives not only in the orchestral arrangement, but within the cantata itself. In this cantata, there is a particular motive, ba 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 ba. That motive will come up a lot in the cantata line throughout the piece. So let's just go listen to this real quick and kind of get a feeling for this. So, these two little rhythmic snippets that I've highlighted here are a little bit different. The one on the left here with the quarter note, dotted eighth, 16th, half note, that way of writing is how Mendelssohn did it in the original piece for the most part, and Labas has changed that to be triplets. It's easier to read, a little bit easier to write, but it does change the rhythm slightly between the two versions. So it's going to be something that if you're familiar with this piece, you're going to want to watch out for. I'm going to solo just the specific soprano line in that one section, just again so you guys can get a sense of this. So we're going to select this. So they're very similar, but there is that rhythmic difference, and that's something that whoever wants to take on the cantata piece is going to have to be aware of. It's actually really interesting is because this section, and remain there forever at rest, and in the wilderness build me a nest, this is written exactly as Mendelssohn wrote it in the original piece. But the original section in triplets is different. So just something to keep in mind of. And the reason why Mendelssohn wrote it like this, you'll see later on as we start marking up other bits of the score, is because it's easier to line up some of the rhythmic hit points between all the different voice parts when it's written out like this. Technically, in triplets, you're really only going to be on the attack of 1, the release of 2, the attack of 3, and the release of 4. You don't have any interbeat. It doesn't line up in between beats the same way. So then, in reality, for most of what we're going to be doing here, just so everyone knows, we're going to be starting generally from rehearsal marker B on page, what page number is this? Page 7. Wow, there's really only one system per page. And for the a tutti, or the full choir part, the rhythm is very simplified. And for most of the piece, there's nothing terribly complicated in here. In all honesty, the soprano part with the dotted 8th and 16th notes are going to be the most complicated thing in here, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It means that all attacks and releases on a note are going to have to be quite precise. But that's not anything to worry about. We're going to be rehearsing this piece quite a bit. You guys are also going to have tools by the end of this to go through things. So there are a few things that we're going to do as far as score markup goes that's going to make this sound a little bit better. There are going to be some post-production audio effects put in. So we want to rehearse this as if we were going to be sitting in a large concert hall, because that's how I'm going to end up mixing this at the end of the day. So in general, what we're going to see is we have the text sitting beside us from last week, and it will be with you again. And what we're looking at is the text being, I need to go look through all of my notes here. Oh, for the wings of a dove. That is one stanza. Far away would I rove. In the wilderness build me a nest, and remain there forever at rest. So what we're going to do in general, when we see a part repeating here, so let's take this soprano line. Oh, for the wings of a dove, and then it repeats the wings of a dove again. This dove ends on a dotted quarter note. What we're actually going to do is take away that dot, and there's going to be a cut in the sound there. So what that's going to do is give us this bit of a sound. Just want to make sure all my solo markers are set properly in the transform. Now we also end the wings of a dove on this half note. What we're going to do actually is make that a dotted quarter. What we're doing is we're leaving an 8th note space between thoughts here. And then this is just going to be that. Actually, that ends on a rest, so we're going to just leave that release there. So what you end up with once I edit this first section we're going to leave that there on the bass line. So we are just doing this little 6 measure section here. And you're going to hear there are going to be breaks actually across the entire choir. And the silence is not necessarily a bad thing. What's going to happen is it's going to sound like a clean cutoff in the final recording. Yep, and right here in measure 39 is going to be another spot where we strike that and move that. So what you're going to get here in this effect is now, this alto line right here at 41, you're going to hear has quite a bit of a jump. So that 6 is a little bit of a hard jump to make right away, so we're also going to go ahead and make that an 8th note with an 8th rest, and you'll end up with a much easier transition there. And the reason why that works here is because D, E, F, yep, that is an F, and it's also what the sopranos have here. So what you really have is you just have a part doubling an octave apart. So what happens is you still end up in the same chord and the same tonality even during that 8th rest there. It's something that won't be noticed too much by the audience. And that really brings us just between measure marker B and C for score markup. And I see we have somebody in the Discord chat. If you have any questions, please feel free to chime in or go ahead and put into the rehearsals channel on Discord. I will address it as we kind of go between sections here. But this is still being recorded and sent out to everybody, so that's not a huge deal either way. So we will now just go ahead between C and D and do the score markup here. And what we have here and remain there forever at rest. Perfect. So now we are at measure 49 and we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to go ahead and give a quarter rest, or 8th rest rather, at the end of that quarter note. And what we're going to have here is, we'll just go back here to measure 45 and just take a listen. Now, we're going to do another thing. At the end of remain, we're also doing the same thing. 8th note with an 8th rest. And we're also doing this at the quarter note on beat 1 of 51. And that gives us really 3 complete thoughts. So and then when it drops the octave, we're doing the same thing. So this quarter note is becoming an eighth note with an eighth rest. Forever at rest. And then at measure 53, we are just striking the dot. So you end up with so there's going to be another thing that we do.
Hey.
Oh, hello.
Okay. My computer is muted. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine. So we're just going through, I'm doing some score markup. So there's going to be some slight changes to the score and some of the notation. What we're doing is we want to add a little bit of space between certain phrases in the music. So what happens is it gives the illusion of a cleaner cutoff when other audio effects are going to be added in.
Okay. I needed to say that I was probably going to be sitting out the thing tonight because I'm going to have to eat really soon.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, this is all being recorded. I didn't upload last week since there wasn't actually a lot of content last week. So I just wanted to make sure that we kind of got everything because I was actually able to go over everything in like a minute or two this week. So.
All right.
Yep. So we're currently at measure 58, 59, 60, 61. So this is the first time here that the cantata and the choir are in a perfect unison all the way through. At the same time, the cantata has a very large jump. Which it's only a fourth, but it's a much harder, that's a very hard leap still to do cleanly. So what we're going to do here is making this a dotted quarter. Whoop, I just lost that measure. There we go. So we make that a dotted quarter. So that gives a clean release with everyone. Yep, so this is going to be another spot right here at the end of measure 73. And through measure 74, what we're doing is when your section here ends, and right before you move on to the next phrase, we're following the lead of the cantata here, where there is a eighth rest and then moving on. So what we end up with, we'll start back here from 71. So then, what we do here is the entire choir lines up at this point. So we're going to go ahead and add in our eighth rest before everyone comes back in, which means I get to remove the dot on that, and there we go. I have that on repeat. There we go. Actually, the cantata is getting changed to strike that dot entirely and just do a quarter rest there. And that's it. This is week 2's score markup. It's just, again, about adding some space in between some logical breaks in the music. And hopefully throughout some of this you picked up some things where when the cantata was alone, it used that new triplet pattern, and when it was together with the choir in a unison or part of the actual harmony of the choir, it went back to the dotted eighth 16th rhythm, which again is pretty interesting. So we have a little bit of two motifs kind of going on with the cantata here and how it plays with the rest of the choir. So let me check my notes again and let's see where we're at. So I just want to just check in real quick, make sure there's no questions about the score markup that you guys have seen so far. Again, the files will be updated for you actually in a few minutes. Once I save this, it will be updated automatically for you guys. You'll have to re-download the new version, but that'll be ready to go. So I'll just wait a second to see if there's any questions.
I got nothing so far.
All right, great. So we're now going to move on to a couple techniques that we're going to, or actually one big technique that I really want everyone to focus on this week to help rapidly learn some pieces that you may or may not be familiar with. For the pieces that you are familiar with, this is helpful because it takes away some of the familiarity and can kind of break you of bad habits. And for pieces you're not familiar with, it's a way to get your arms around both the harmonic and the rhythmic structures and why things are written the way they are. And it's we're doing this by taking away the text, and we are singing on the count. So, for example, let me come up to rehearsal marker B. And I really wish there was a way to quickly jump around in MuseScore like this. So we're going to take this one measure here of the bass line. And if you were to count this out, you're looking at 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. So that's all fine. But when we're looking at our first run through of singing on the count, all I really care about is, are you singing the right pitch at the right subbeat? So in this case, we would be singing, let me just get that G, 1 and 2 and T and 4 and. So I'm just singing that measure on the correct pitch on the subdivision, which in this measure all the way through is just half eighth note subdivisions. It gets a little more complicated when you add in things like we don't have any sixteenths. Well, sopranos do here. Way would I rove. So this one would be 1 and 2 and a T and 4 and. So is everyone familiar with, or is anyone here familiar with the rhythmic counting that's generally used in music? 1 and being your strong and weak beat, and then using anda for further subdivisions.
I was not familiar with that.
Okay.
Now I understand that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so what we're going to be doing is this is going to break down, it's a quick way because you're looking through these specifically. But I don't want anybody on singing on their rests. I have not practiced this, so I'm going to apologize in advance. But let's take a look at this bass measure that I've selected. This one would be sung 1 and 2, T and 4 and. We're not doing the subbeat of beat 2 because it's a rest. So what this count singing does is it gets you very familiar with your entrances and exits, and you will be masters of them at the end of this, which in a program like this is super important because you're not going to have a director in front of you giving you your entrances and exits. You're not going to have the choir around you to listen for. You have the MIDI file, but it's not the same. I admit that. So having a very deep understanding of where your entrances and exits are when you change and move notes is super important. And I actually have a huge write-up of count singing. And I have this right here. And I might just have to drop this as an image because I don't know how my screenshots are going to translate into Discord. There's multiple. So actually I don't think that's going to work. This is going to be lifted directly into the email that's sent out to you guys later today. So my apologies, but let me go ahead and drop this into the workshop, or to the rehearsals rather, chat channel. And this is directly out of my notes about how you do this. So you may have noticed when I was doing that bit of example there, I didn't use the word 3. I used T. And the reason for that is you'll trip yourself up on the TH sound. The TH and the R, so TH is aspirated and the R is pitched, which causes a lot of issues. The TH will actually slow the sound so that when you're actually singing 3, it's probably going to be late, and the R is pitched, which could cause your pitch to fluctuate. So we use T to get around that because it's a single vowel consonant pair. And then there are triplets, which I don't necessarily want. I don't need anybody giving to me because we're not going to be doing any work with the cantata for at least another 2 weeks or so. But it's something I want you to look at. So we now know that if we want to subdivide, we use 1 and 2 and T and 4 and, or some quick variation of that. But how do you get the rhythm of a triplet? Dot 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 dot. Well, we use a 3-syllable word, pineapple. Even when you say pineapple normally, you say it in a pretty close approximation to a triplet, so it's something that actually translates well. So for example, we'll take this measure 23. You would sing it 1 and pineapple, T and pineapple. Give me one moment. So that's how you'll do that, is you'll just use pineapple for that. And if you guys want to kind of take that on as a bit of a challenge, please feel free. So that is count singing kind of in a nutshell. What we do, why we use the words and approximations that we do, and the recording assignment we're actually going to have for this week is from rehearsal marker B forward, to have your part count sung, which may involve you coming in here and marking up your score, and that's perfectly fine. When I was getting started, I absolutely would write, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and literally rewrite over the lyrics of what the count sing would be, and that's perfectly fine. But the things I'm listening for are your entrances and exits on cue. So, for example, in the basses, I want to hear in measure 35, I want to hear silence on the subbeat of the second note, or the subbeat of beat 2. I want to hear entrances and cutoffs. And actually, I missed a markup here. So that's going... measure 40, by the way, I missed a markup. That's going to be quarter note, dotted quarter with an eighth rest. Of course, you wouldn't leave my notes selected. So I want to hear silence on the 4th beat here. I want to hear that silence there. I want to hear that the entrances that you have are crisp and clean and everything else. What I will try to do, if it will let me, is to put this in with the metronome. Give you an audio file with metronome to help make this a little bit easier for you. So hopefully the metronome will make it a little bit easier to do that. If you guys download the MuseScore file, it is just this little metronome button right here. You can add in the metronome yourself. So that's perfectly fine. So does anyone have any questions about count singing or what I expect for recording for this for next week?
I have nothing.
Okay, well then that's good news. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here then. We have the tools that we need here for this week, and we will. I'll be waiting for that. I do have updated folders for everybody, and I will be sending that out in an email, which I'm going to be drafting in just a few minutes once I'm done with this and getting this recording uploaded to YouTube. So thanks again, guys. That's everything for now, and with that, I think I'll be off at least. Feel free to hang out, have a chat, do whatever, but that's going to be it for this week, and we'll see you next Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific then.
Have a good day.
You too.
I'm gonna hop out of the voice.